You know, sometimes this life can get rough.
So, welcome to the Wounded podcast. This is episode 1, and I am here with the fantastic, admirable, formidable guest, Lee Maryan. And this is a man that he's had quite a life, and I wanted to pick a guest that would kind of just amplify what this podcast means, not just to me, but to the people who are going to listen. So if you're listening to this and you've been going through something, if you have a wound, if you've been going through trauma, you've been going through a dark time, we're going to get some great pieces of wisdom today, because that's what Wounded is. Finding the wisdom in the wounds that you've been going through. So Simon is a former Royal Marine. He's a human intelligence specialist. He's now a psychology innovator specializing in stress, trauma, and suicide. And he helps individuals and companies through speaking, teaching, and coaching. He's survived 3 kidnappings, and all his experiences enabled him to develop extremely strong psychological and mental resilience, which he shares with people through speaking engagements, delivering a variety of keynote, motivational, and inspirational talks for a wide variety of clients. These are international clients. Some of them include the UK military, the FBI, New York Police Department, NYPD hostage negotiation team, oil and gas companies, banks, and the UK government departments. His videos are uploaded all the time. He's a great personality to have on the show. Simon, welcome. Welcome to Wounded.
Thank you, Steve. It's first guest. Wow.
I couldn't think of anyone better. You are, we were just chatting earlier about the diversity of things that we've gone through. And to kick off, we were just talking about food. Seems a bit of a strange one to go into, but I was almost given a traumatic experience when you arrived one day with the sausages. And it wasn't just sausages, was it? Why don't you tell the guests who are listening, watching, what you turned up with?
Okay. My favourite sandwich on a weekend is sausage, sriracha sauce, and peanut butter, because it makes a spicy satay sausage sandwich. And it's fantastic.
Yeah, it didn't look that appealing. And I'll be honest with you, when you turned up, I was like, what the fuck? Peanut butter? Mm-hmm. I've got to tell you though, right? That's one of the best sandwiches I've ever had in my life.
There's a lot of things I'll lie about, but food's not one of them.
No, I've spent time in the kitchen, and there's usually a bottle of wine, a bit of a joke, a giggle, me and you swapping stories. And, maybe you turned up one day and I was like, fucking peanut butter? What the fuck, man? But you had these sausages, and they were from the butchers in Turriff, were they?
Yes. Yeah.
Wrapped in this, because usually these days you get it in a clear bag.
Oh no, it's the blue and white striped paper.
Yeah, old fashioned. It brought me back to like when it was when you got fish and chips or poke chips in newspaper.
Yes.
What chips tasted better then? They just tasted better, and it had to be the ink off the page. You
could read your chips as well.
you could do a crossword while having a fish supper. That's probably why intelligence is going down a little bit lately. Maybe we need to go back to the old newspaper times.
I could live with that.
Yeah. But I remember it was wrapped in that blue and white wrapping paper. It felt good. So it made me think this is going to be good. And I know we're joking, we laugh about that, but there's a quality to it. And I think that symbolizes you. You are a man of quality. You are a man of substance. You are a man who, you don't just kind of hide behind the facades of life. There's no veneer to you. That's something I've always thought about you. You're just a real fucking deal.
Well, I guess that's something that's developed over time. I've had multiple veneers, I think, over the years. I think not just because of the line of work that I got into prior to where I am now, but just having to try to fit in. You have to start with, when you're somewhere new, you go through training. You have to put on this veneer of being able to get through it, even though you're tired and pissed off and miserable and shitting yourself at what's coming next. And you have to put on this veneer of courage and fearlessness without, because you don't know really what's coming. You've got an idea, but you don't know how it's going to be. So that, I think we're all wearing masks all the time.
Yeah, that's such a powerful one. I know Lewis Howes from the School of Greatness, he spoke in his book about the masks of masculinity.
Yeah.
When that first kind of came out, I felt a bit uneasy, which made me think, fuck, am I wearing masks? Is there parts of my kind of makeup, my personality, that maybe I am talking shit about some things in my life? And that really got me to reflect on the bullshit I'm telling myself. And there was definitely some of that, which kind of goes into other areas. But something I've wanted to ask you for a while is, what happened to you?
When?
Yeah. So let's get right into it.
Okay.
You served in the Royal Marines.
I did.
That's a hard fucking course to pass.
It wasn't a walk in the park. It felt like it wasn't going to end, to be quite honest. Looking back on it, as always, there's a lot of funny moments and there's a lot of fun along the way. But yeah, it's a big ask, and you've got to be 100% committed to it. If there's, yes, you have periods of doubt. The only time you get any space and time to think and a bit of privacy is you go to the toilet. So you sat on the throne, thinking, what the fuck am I doing? Why am I here? I can't do this. This is fucking too hard.
Yeah.
But then, you gather yourself and you hear the boat in the next stall, kind of doing the same thing, and you think, oh, it's not just me.
Yeah, I'm not in this alone.
Yeah. Everyone at different stages struggles, and you help each other through. That's the whole point. Nobody tells you to do it, but you just develop that camaraderie early on and very quickly, because you're all in the same shit pit.
Yeah.
Experiencing the same things and struggling at different points. So you just help each other through. By default, it's just a natural progression. That's
something I want to touch on later, help, because that's something I've really struggled with asking for, which kind of goes into like childhood kind of stuff. But because you're someone I've come to for help in the past, but we'll get into that. So you're a Royal Marine, you've passed selection, you've done your course, you've got your coveted beret. Well, that must have been a pretty powerful moment for you.
Oh, it's a huge day. They used to, when you finish your 30 miler, you've already pre-shaped, you've dunked your berry in hot water and you pre-shaped it ready. So that when you get across that final bridge at the end of the 30 miler on Dartmoor, you were given it and you put it on and you would get your flashes. And they've gone back to the old black and red.
Yeah, I saw that.
The old commando style, which is what I got when I passed. I'm not that bloody old, but during the war.
During the war. Granddad.
So, which I quite like actually, that they've gone back to their roots.
Yeah. Are we going back to the because we're going back to the King's crown, aren't they?
Yes.
I think most cat badges are changing back.
Yeah, they are. The global laurel, the core badge for the berry is changing.
Off and on, what a strange time, to have kind of come through and seen all this.
It's quite epic, really.
It is.
There's lots happening in a short space of time.
Yeah, it really is. And there's so much to kind of unpack there, but I really want to kind of get to, there's something I want to ask when I get to when I said to you, like, what happened to you, what I'm really referring to, and you're unpacking and unraveling a really great story here, a timeline, but let's just you were kidnapped.
Yeah.
Like, how the fuck does that happen?
Unlucky, I think. I've been kidnapped 3 times.
I mean, that's it. Like, you get struck by lightning once, right? The chances of that happening, and you've heard stories, and they're like 1 in 4 billion kind of thing.
I know, it was 3 years on the bounce as well. So
3 years on the bounce.
Yeah, it's my annual thing for 3 years.
Tradition.
Habits develop quite quickly.
Set the clock.
I'm overdue one, actually. Yeah.
Don't say that. Overdue. Fucking Liam Neeson kicks the door down.
Oh God, I wish. Jesus.
Oh yeah. So that's a good one. So we've all watched the films. Someone gets kidnapped, and I mean, like, my mind goes back to Steve McQueen. The Great Escape.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't like that.
No, because I didn't escape the first 2. I escaped the third one, but not the first 2. The first 2 were both in Nigeria, 2006 and then 2007. And the first one is quite surreal. It's quite comical looking back on it. You know, despite, you know, no matter what training you've had, when that happens, you shit yourself. No two ways about it. I was absolutely fucking terrified because I had no weapon.
No
So
tools, man.
I had nothing to defend myself with. And when you get 12, 15, some of them very, very large Nigerian gentlemen, some with GPMGs, AKs, and it's just, you know, that's a persuasive argument to do as you're told. Really, it certainly focuses your attention pretty swiftly.
So were they rough for you, like right at the beginning?
Yeah, they were a bit because they knock you around, kick you around a little bit, threw me and one other guy into a skiff,
Little boat,
speedboat, because he was on a boat offshore in Nigeria, and then whisked off back in towards the shore, and then up rivers. You know, basically, we're face down in this skiff.
Yeah, so it's hard to get any kind of negotiation.
Bouncing up and down.
Orienteering.
Yeah, I had no idea where I was going.
Yeah.
Really. And certainly once we got into the swamps, I didn't have a clue. So trying to escape was a bit pointless. And I was pretty confident at that point in Nigeria that they were kidnapping people for money. Mm-hmm. It wasn't, and it was a bit of a political statement as well. So yes, you get a bit of a walloping around just to make you compliant.
Yeah.
And then we got to the village, and then got out the skiff, got onto dry land, and they said, look, basically it was like, really sorry, not going to hurt you. We're just using you to get money for the village and to make a kind of a political statement to the government and the oil companies.
Yeah.
Because we're getting abused, you know, financially and with land and, you know, false promises and all that sort of stuff. And they actually took really good care of us. They gave us we're free reign to walk around. You know, we weren't held in
like shackled and all.
No, nothing like that. They said, listen, they gave us 3 meals a day.
Fuck.
Water was too expensive. There's a local beer called Star Beer, which is a very chemically brewed beer.
Yeah.
And it's bearable when it's ice cold, but we were held for 9 days. So I was drinking Star Beer for 9 days.
I mean, there's worse places to get
dude. I had the worst fucking hangover at the end of that.
Because you got no fluid, no nothing.
I was drier than the carpet. And it was, the come down from that was horrific.
I mean, it sounds, you know, you're looking back and you're telling the story and you can laugh about it in a sense, but if you actually think about it, like, that's a lot of fucking beer.
Yeah.
With no come down, and it's that heat, that dense.
I've never had a hangover like that before or since. I'm not looking to try. But
I don't think I've ever heard of that kind of punishment before.
No, it's
a new one.
Probably worse than the shock of capture.
Yeah, fuck.
But here's the weird thing about it, right? So they gave us malaria tablets, mosquito nets, mattress to sleep on, 3 meals a day, loads of beer. It was like a Club 1830, really. In the swamps of Nigeria. But yeah, so go out and we'd play football with the kids. You know, I actually got in the last couple of 2 or 3 days of it, I was like, listen, your weapons are in the right state. Unload that. So I cleaned their weapons and serviced them for them. So they were in a much better state when we left.
I mean, what kind of better horse did you... This is just you. This is you turning up with the peanut butter and the sausages again, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Let me clean your weapons for you.
Yeah. But again, what it does is it helps to keep you human. It humanizes you to them, so you're helping them. It's not to do with anything to do with the Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
It's just about survival, and it's doing what you need to do.
But that's a fucking hard thing to do when you're under those environments. Like, your average person, even with a little bit of training, your average person would be fair to say that they would fold.
Well, it's not a nice situation to be in, but, you know, regardless of where you are, you've got to utilize everything at your disposal to make life as comfortable as possible.
Yeah.
And building a relationship with people, it's harder for people to hurt you when you become friendly with them, and they start to like you. And it's not that they disliked us in the first place. You know, they apologized when they got us to the village.
They're just kind of doing what they have to do.
Yeah.
Wow, and that's an intense experience. But like you said, this didn't happen to you once.
No, I got the following year, got taken again. This time, it's a totally different scenario. totally different group of people. These were definitely, this was a criminal group.
Okay.
And they were they were more brutal. They were harder. They were definitely harder.
Because their aims were not political in nature.
Just money.
Just money.
Yeah. They were just fucking scumbags, to be quite blunt.
No, but yeah, totally.
The first lot, you know, I would, if I could go back and meet them again, I would.
I like that.
The second bunch, if I could go back and kill them, I would.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about them.
I love your candor.
And I don't say that lightly, and I don't say that about many situations in my life, but if I could go back and fucking slot that lot, I would.
Do you know what, mate, right? Seriously. That you just kind of reminded me of something that Mike Tyson speaks about. One of the biggest problems we have in the world today is you're not allowed to punch anyone in the fucking face.
Yeah.
And that sounds a bit harsh, but if you look at the way people are being treated and they're just being disregarded, we're not just going into rights and civil liberties, just common fucking decency.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and when we grew up, I've been punched in the face quite a few times, and I have punched other people. I don't like violence. I don't like it. And I know there's a proclivity for it. But I think you're right. I think you're dead fucking on, and I have to agree with what you said there, because forgiveness is nice, but sometimes it just has no place.
No, some people just need to be dispatched.
Yeah, I like that.
It's not making light of it because it's a dark subject, and that's kind of how we deal with stuff. From being in the military and any other uniform service, they're all the same. You know, NHS has a very dark sense of humour as well.
Yeah,
the police, the fire service, the prison service, you know, they're all very similar in that respect, because it helps you to get through it, to make light of very difficult things to deal with.
it absolutely does. I remember during COVID, and remember when I got paralysed for like 2 weeks, I had a massive muscle spasm, and you came and beautifully cooked me. Yeah, do you remember that?
Yeah.
You turned up. So I, for anyone who's listening, so I was in COVID. I was going through a pretty tough time myself, but I ended up with a paralysed nerve in the bottom of my back, so I couldn't walk. It was about 2 weeks. I was on the floor. What else am I going to do except go doom scrolling? And I found TikTok. Then I ended up getting quite a few followers on it, and I went live. And that's when the doctor turned up to give me an injection of some kind of muscle relaxant in both cheeks. So this was captured live on video. That very same day, Simon turned up. My ass cheeks are on show, and he's there to cook me food. I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, there is nothing this man won't do to put a smile on your face. And this is coming from a guy who was kidnapped, who's been through the fucking ringer. You know, it's a fantastic thing. But going back to you, so you've been, this is the second time.
So
the
second
scumbags.
35 days. So they held us in a hut. There was 5 of us in total. And, you know, we got 1 meal a day, barely got any water, just left to fester. And the longer it took for them to get their money, the more pissed off they got. Yeah. And the atmosphere changed.
Yeah.
After about 2 weeks, it definitely changed.
You could feel this.
Yeah. And the last 10 days, they were upping the ante. They would take us out. They were starting to get really drunk at night, taking more drugs.
That's scary.
Because they were really pissed off that they weren't getting what they wanted. So they started taking it out on us. So they would take us out, and they would just one at a time, so we could all see this person getting the shit kicked out of them. They dug a hole in the ground that was about about 3 feet, 4 feet in diameter, and about 6-7 foot deep.
Fuck.
And they would tie your hands behind your back and stick you in head first.
Head first.
And leave you there for hours. And guys would come by and just charmingly, you know, take a piss.
Treat you like an animal.
Yeah, a few times people dumped in the hole while you're upside down, and that's fucking lovely.
Motherfuckers.
Yeah. This is why I would, not going back there again.
You can't change people like that, I don't think. You could try, but I don't think if
No.
you've got that in you, you've been through some tough times, but you're a really good person, and you do good. You're a family man, but you would never be pushed to behave like that towards an individual for no reason, especially money.
No. I mean, but you know, it's a different culture, a different way of life,
yeah,
a different philosophy on life. Life is very cheap.
So what's your philosophy on life, Simon?
Well, make the most of it. Make the most of the people that are in your life, that you want in your life. Get rid of the ones you don't. Enjoy your time with the people who enjoy being with you. And try, the aim, I think, for me, is to kind of help as many people as possible. Leave the world in as much as you can in a slightly better place than when you started.
That's pretty beautiful, mate. And it's clear.
Got to try, at least.
Yeah. I think that's... do you think people are too hard on themselves?
Typically, people are their own worst enemy and worst critic. We sabotage ourselves quite successfully, quite naturally.
Yeah, that's the naturally part, yeah.
Nobody wakes up in the morning going, right, how many stupid decisions can I make to fuck myself up right royally today? We don't do that. It's not how we think. But unconsciously, we do things, we get into habits of, habitual patterns of behavior that were helpful at one stage, but we hadn't updated. So as our life and, society and culture and politics changes, etc., and our environment changes, we don't update automatically necessarily to keep up with the change that's happened around us. So our behavioral patterns from the military, for example, we have ways of being in the military that aren't conducive to being a healthy, productive, functional civvy.
Yeah.
We do things that make our lives uncomfortable unnecessarily because having a warm, comfortable life outside feels weird.
It does feel weird. It took me it's still sometimes hard for me to accept that. Like if I'm not going hell for leather and everything, then I'm not going to succeed. And sometimes when I look at other people who just they're so easy.
Yeah.
And they're not unhappy. They're not lazy. They're just not the way that I assume that everyone... I don't assume people should be, but it's what I'm used to. And they're doing all right.
Yeah.
They're actually doing better than all right.
Well, it's these things that I've experienced that helped me to kind of accept that change of my life. Because having been in those situations, like that second one in Nigeria particularly, getting upside down in a hole, getting pissed on and shat on, getting a beating every day, and then escalating where they would, they'd be drunk like 9, 10 at night, they'd be absolutely out of their faces, and they'd come along with a machete and they'd take you out and they'd beat you with the flat side of it.
That's fucking harsh, man. That's painful.
That
man.
hurts.
Yeah,
and also, that was bad. And then they started doing mock executions with pistols and AKs, and they'd they'd kneel all of us down and they'd stick a barrel in somebody's face, in their mouth, and then pull the trigger, laughing.
That shit fucks you up, man. That's deer hunter shit.
Yeah, and it wasn't great.
Yeah.
But actually being beaten with the flat side of a machete was scarier, because if you get a round through the head,
no feelings, no nothing.
You're going to know nothing.
Yeah.
But if there's a slight twist of the wrist and they hit you with a machete with the strength that they were hitting you with, you're going to lose a limb. Or they're going to cut your head in half or slice you open or whatever.
And they're on drugs, they're fucked up on shit. Yeah.
But, it broke. It broke 2 or 3 of the guys that were there. All this, and they never recovered, really.
Yeah, and you know what? There's, I think people are under the disillusion that they would think, I'll never break. We've heard the term, everybody breaks.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, and I think there's we need to understand that we're only fucking human. We're not mechanisms of infinity distance of we can do fucking everything and nothing will break me. And you've been that's one fucked up situation to go through, yeah.
Excuse me, it took me a long time to kind of process that one, to be fair. That took a while. It took some work.
So how did you get out of that one?
Ultimately, it all stopped one morning. We just woken up and chucked in the boats and then got released in the same place on a stretch of river as the first time. Because it was in the same state. It was in Bielsa.
You need to stop going on the same holidays.
Yeah, I know. Well, actually, I thought about doing reviews on TripAdvisor. Definitely, the VIP pickup for the first one left a lot to be desired, but the actual stay itself was really nice.
Yeah.
Great hospitality, but the second one, I'd definitely give them a scathing review on TripAdvisor, I think.
Yeah. Hotel room service was not what was said on the brochure.
No, it was definitely not.
Daily beatings.
Location could have been good, but
lots of exercise. But
certainly
no beer, but are getting pissed on.
Yeah. Definitely. The weather was good.
So what was your TripAdvisor review for number 3?
Number 3? Okay. So number 3 was in Sweden.
Sweden?
Yeah, I know.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I know. I was on a job in Sweden, and the person I was working with, I'd train them up for anti-surveillance, to become aware, and then the counter-surveillance drills so they get followed. And this guy had spotted some people who kept appearing, so he let me know, and I did some counter-surveillance to confirm, and I was like, yes, you're right. He was at a house, this was in the east of Stockholm, the islands in the east of Stockholm.
Okay.
And he was there having dinner, and I was doing I parked at the bottom of the road where all these houses go off in their little individual little plots. Mm-hmm. There was a cafe down the bottom, and it was nighttime. And I parked down there, and I walked up through the woods to check around the back of his house. But when I got there to the car park at this cafe, there was a van, and there were 2 other cars that were not normally there.
Okay.
Because I used to check every night to make sure that everything was okay. And so as I was walking, I saw 2 guys at the back. So I thought, right, I'm going to go back to the car. I got on the phone to my boss and said, right, yep, confirmed. There's 2 guys there. There's 3 vehicles. There's a big transit van, box van. And as I'm sat in the car, this box van screeches in front, headlights blaring through the window, and I got guys either sides with silenced weapons. So they had tapping on the window for me to get out of the car.
Yeah.
So they took my phone, stomped on it, took my jacket, threw me around, gave me a bit of a kicking. And they're big old boys as well. They were, I'm 5'10" on a tall day, and they must have been a good 6'5", 6'6".
Big old lads.
Big lads. So I got thrown around like a rag doll. And then I got thrown in the back of this van. And I knew which direction they'd taken. So I was sat in the back of this van, and between me and the back of the van, so I was on the left-hand side, on a bench seat in the back of this van. Yeah. So the back door was to my right. There was a guy between me and the door. There was a guy between me and the front, the cab at the front, both with weapons. The muzzle of this guy's weapon to my right was tapped as we were going down the road. And bearing in mind, this was March, so this was still snow.
Yeah, still cold.
Still cold. This was later on in the evening of the night, and it was dark. It was cold. It was snowing, and I knew they'd turn left back in towards Stockholm. So I was thinking, how the fuck am I going to get out of here? Because they didn't cuff me or tie me.
Really?
They didn't hood me. They did nothing. So instinctively, I thought, I'm on a fucking one-way.
You've got a chance here.
And I'm on a one-way trip.
How did you know that?
Gut feeling. Because they didn't do anything to control me. And
fuck.
So they didn't cover their faces. I could see who they were. So I could have given descriptions.
So you've got experience in this. It's happened to you a few times, and you just fucking knew.
I just knew that. So what I did, I was thinking, how the fucking hell am I going to get out of this?
How did you?
So the only thing that came, and I still to this, I don't know how I created so much saliva in my mouth, but I sat with my hands between my knees. I pulled my right foot back to brace it against the kind of the bulkhead of the wheel arch. Mm-hmm. My left foot forwards. And what I did was I stored as much saliva in my mouth as I could, as quickly as I could.
Adapt and improvise, motherfucker.
Yeah. And this guy's muzzle was tapping against my leg. So when I felt I had enough, I grabbed the muzzle of his weapon, pushed it forwards with my right hand. I lunged forwards and I spat everything I had into the face of the guy in front of me. Then I pushed his weapon and I rammed him against the door, and I pulled the handle. So we both fell out into the road. And I fell on top of him. The back of his head hit the ground, and it popped.
Good.
So obviously it was claret everywhere.
Yeah.
We rolled. I dislocated my shoulder again. I already had a couple of broken ribs. My cheek was all swollen. In fact, they fractured my eye socket again. And then we rolled, and then I just ran into the woods, or hobbled, runs and over egging it really, and in the trees, the kind of, it was like plough troughs.
Yeah.
What I did was I went about 50, 60 meters into the woods, laid in this and pulled snow and leaves all over me and laid there. And I must have I could hear what was going on. I could hear them searching around a little bit, but there was still some traffic going up and down the road. So they couldn't wait for too long. So I must have laid there for about an hour and a half. I heard the van door, and I heard them drive off.
Heart thumping, adrenaline bursting through you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I probably had pissed myself, to be honest.
I fucking would too, mate.
Yeah.
I think anyone would.
Yeah.
At least you weren't getting pissed on.
No, not this time. No, I did throw up though. I don't remember doing that when I was laid there.
Yeah.
I had to turn my head and throw up over my shoulder.
Yeah, but emotions push the body through that stress, that cortisol just pouring through your body, your heart thumping.
So yeah, laid in the snow for an hour and a half, freezing my tits off, and then hobbled back to the car because I had to go and see if the car was still there.
Okay.
Because although they'd taken my jacket, and the car keys, and they'd smashed my phone, if they hadn't taken the car, I had a spare set of keys that were secured underneath the inside the chassis.
Yeah.
So the car was still there, the door was still open. They'd taken the sat nav out and just. So I found the keys, and I managed to drive back into Stockholm. Went to the apartment. And then I had to get on Skype to call my boss and let him know what was going on. But because I'd already given them warning, he'd already got in touch with the guy and told him the emergency plan, crack on with it now, don't piss about, go now. And he'd nipped out in between and got in and made his way back into Stockholm to the pre-designated hotel, done all his anti-surveillance drills all the way in. And I met him at the hotel at about 3 a.m, and then we got a flight from Stockholm to London that day.
Fuck. Well, thank fuck you got through that, man.
Yeah, it was a weird one. Yeah, didn't like that one.
So all these things have happened to you, and these are extreme experiences for anyone, even anyone in the military. These are extreme experiences. And fast forward a few years, you've come through some pretty personal, tough moments.
Yeah.
And is it fair to say that you find yourself in a bit of a struggle, a bit of a dark time?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I dealt with as much as with what I thought needed dealing with, but I had a blip in 2016, which was tough for the family. 2 kids and a wife, and it was that was a hard time.
What happened?
I had to take 6 months to get myself back in a decent enough state again, really, to be useful. I had to do a lot of work personally there.
But you've been through so much.
Yeah, well, more than some, less than others,
and I mean that, like, in the sense of that would break most people.
Well, it did, clearly it broke me at one point.
So what was
2016. So, yeah. And I had a hard time a couple of years ago. Burnout.
Did you reach rock bottom?
not as low as I had a long time ago. I mean, we've talked about this before, but when I was leaving the military, a mate of mine had tried to kill himself 6 months prior. I was losing my job because I was medically discharged. My marriage was going up the Swanee, which means, and because I was getting divorced and leaving, I lost my house. So I had a lot in one go, but I learned the lesson from my friend who tried to kill himself. He stuck a pistol in his mouth, pulled the trigger, and survived. Yeah. I thought, right, okay, I'll stick the pistol in my eye socket. But I got interrupted as I was, basically going to pull the trigger. I'd done my, very subtle goodbyes. I'd made some phone calls, and I'd phoned, one of the guys I'd phoned was down in Bournemouth. This was in North London, and one of the guys I'd phoned was somebody I'd known since I was 4. I'd known his family that long, and he picked up on something and put the phone down. He lived in Bournemouth, and he got in the car and just drove straight up.
He just picked up on a difference in the conversation, like a tone or something. Yeah,
something wasn't right, and he came up and said to check on me, and then I was really pissed off when he rang the doorbell because there's me sat like that. I'd had my 2
interruptions.
I'd had my cup of tea and my 2 chocolate digestives, and I was quite pissed off.
But that's what they say about people, and I've been there myself. And I do look back and I think it was a cry for help. In my sense, I was struggling, but when you've decided,
it's fun.
It's kind of peace. Clinical. The process of going through it. Yeah. This is what I'm going to do. So you could, for anyone listening, anyone looking at this story, they could think, fuck, he's one unlucky motherfucker, kidnapped 3 times. But
I've been called other things for that as well.
But to be interrupted by someone who picked up on the tone of the conversation, the shift, a subtle change, and he managed to get there on time and knock on that fucking door.
Yeah,
as you've got gun to the head, gun to the eye.
Yeah, I know. It's,
some could say divine intervention.
Well, yeah, it could do.
If you believe in that kind of stuff, it's pretty.
Wasn't my time.
Certainly wasn't it. So, of all the shit that you've gone through, you've helped a lot of people. You've spoken on stage. You've written a book. Yep. The immediate care process. I know you're writing some more work. You do phenomenal work with individuals. You've certainly helped me. I know that for a fact. I was pretty against therapy. Mm-hmm. I always thought, not me. I'll do personal development. I'll study. I'll learn from others. I'll learn from myself. But I'm not sitting down to open up this fucking wound. And the older I've got, I've realised, I was afraid. I was scared. And, I wasn't going to tell this story, but when we sat down in your garden, and we went through your process.
Yes.
Which is fucking incredible. There was a little part of me that was like, this is not going to work, not for me. I'm too fucked up. My head's such a mess. PTSD, suicide attempts, drink, drugs, alcohol, fighting, violence, all that shit, man. But nothing prepared me for what happened that day. Because when I left the army, I thought my trauma was PTSD from having seen a child blown up, and from having, kind of lost some friends a fucking lot of friends to suicide, and almost myself. My marriage fell apart, all that kind of great shit. But when I sat down with you that day in the garden, it was a beautiful day, the sun was shining, sat in your chairs outside, and I just surrendered to it. And the weirdest thing happened, and it's mad because we have this recorded.
Yeah.
So my deepest wound is when I was abandoned as a child by my father. And he only lived a mile away from me, and he never checked in, not fucking once. That hurt more than I ever declared. I think this might be the first time I've ever said this. And I promised that I was going to be honest in this podcast, but sitting down with you gave me the courage to face myself. And I broke down a couple of years ago online. And the next day I wrote something called, I've been hiding from myself. Now, we were in the garden and we were going through a process.
Indeed.
And I had my doubts about myself, not you or your process, but me. Anyway, we went through it, and I had my eyes closed and I'm going through this thing, and you were getting me to visualize, and I saw myself as like a 6-7-year-old kid at the desk typing, happily writing away. And then I looked over as this child, and I'm looking on this, and in walks this beautiful, shiny man with a beautiful blue suit on, trimmed beard, swashed back silver grey hair, and I was like, fuck, it's my grandfather. But it wasn't. In that moment, that vision, it was me. And it was the old retired me who had achieved everything he had ever wanted to achieve. He'd done everything he wanted to do. He'd made a success of his life, overcome all his wounds, lived, loved, laughed his way through life, had great friends. He was healthy, He wasn't extravagantly rich, but he certainly wasn't poor. He had a good fucking life. And then he was looking over at this kid, and they were saying, it's going to be all right. And I remember saying to you, what the fuck? Your process cut through all the bullshit that I told myself, and it got right to the fucking wound. And it has taken me a good solid 1.5 to 2 years to unpack that bit by bit. So I want to ask you, what is the wisdom from your wounds?
Wow. One thing is trust yourself. Don't hold things in.
Fuck yeah. Yeah.
Don't be that person that doesn't seek help, because we all need help in all sorts of ways throughout life. We need help to learn how to brush our teeth, tie our shoes, to walk. Learning to deal with, psychological injuries and pain. We can't do ourselves because we've processed it through our own minds, through our own experiences up to that point. We need help to process it differently so that we can file it away as a memory rather than something that's causing us constant problems in every moment in our here and now of our life. So ask for help. Ask for help when you need it, and accept it.
That's the hard part.
Yeah, accept that you've asked for it and accept that you're getting it and make use of it. Don't sabotage your own progress just because you think you can sort everything yourself, because you fucking can't.
No, you can't. Final words?
Final words. I think ever more relevant these days, the way society and culture and perception of life that seems to be growing at the moment is actually just to be nice to each other. Be kind to yourself, be kind to other people. The world needs more compassion, needs more love, and it needs more fun, because it's becoming less fun because of a very blinkered way of being and restrictive. We need more fun, we need more love.
Got to agree with that, man. What a wicked way to end. Simon, honestly, where can people find you online?
I'm not giving my address out,
No, because those fuckers might come and kidnap you.
Yeah, wouldn't put it past some of them. So I have a website, which is simonmaryan.com. You can find me on, what am I on? Social media at Simon Lee Maryan, L-E-E. I'm sure you'll put all this stuff up anyway.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And I think that's pretty much it, yeah.
Absolutely. So I guess I need some kind of tradition from episode number 1. So do you have a question you would like to ask our next guest?
I like this style, yeah. Yeah. what is it you're doing that's, I guess, self-sabotage? What are you doing that's constantly tripping yourself, causes you to trip yourself up and holding you back?
That's a good question. I can't wait to ask it. Simon, it's been an absolute fucking pleasure, my man.
Likewise, bud. Always good.
Yeah. Listen, mate, so everyone, if you're watching, listening, you'll find Simon at Simon Lee Maryan, simonmarian.com. He's on Instagram, YouTube. Go and subscribe to him today. He's a fantastic coach, speaker, author. He's just an all-round good motherfucker, and it's an absolute pleasure to have him on the show. Mate, thank you very much.
Cheers, buddy. Thank you.
Yeah, you too, man. Take care.
Cheers.
Times, yeah, I traveled around 1,000 miles, feeling so tired, but you know I can't stop now. Came way too far, won't throw in the towel. It ain't looking real good, but I won't give up. Pac said that I gotta keep my head up, so I ain't going nowhere. Yeah, I'm standing right here. Demons all around, but I ain't got no fear.